I'm starting to get tired of trash cover songs. It's not like there was a constant flood of bad covers in rock coming out right now like there was in Pandemic, but it still feels like the rock covers that do come out are so bad that you have to stop and gawk at the accidents. Except these covers weren't accidents, they were on purpose. I've done a couple of these videos before, and with the holiday season approaching, what better gift than to expose all of you to all of this. This is not a top 10, no ranking, just a list. You can check out the previous videos on bad cover songs in the video description and pinned comments. Thank you for checking this out. You know how these videos work. Let's get to it. What happened to Motley Crue? I mean, we all have a bunch of jokes to answer that question, but really, if Motley Crue in the 80s could see what Vince Neil and company were doing in 2024 by pretending to sound like partying teenagers, I think even they would say that's too much. Beastie Boys said they made Fight for Your Right as a response to party culture and the style of music with no substance. Meanwhile, Motley Crue has spent the last few years trying to resemble party culture and no substance rock, and doing it well past their prime. Vince sounds weak, the bass and riffs are stock, it's a stereotypical cover outside of a few John 5 flourishes, and for those asking why that sounds so awful, it's because these men are in their 60s and the group throws in a few gems like this. The cover was off the 3-track EP Cancelled, and they should have canceled the Beastie Boys idea during the studio session. They also should have canceled the EP in general. Motley Crue have been called out lately on their current ability to perform live or on record, and this is an embarrassing case against. Can you believe I haven't talked about this until now? I mean, I put off talking about 53-year-old Kid Rock as much as possible because he's about as representative of good rock as he has being a kid, but wow, he has a lot of awful covers, including this horrendous cover of Bad Company. I've heard many adjectives given both good and bad about Kid Rock over the years, but nostalgic for sexy times is not the description that anyone ever associates with a homophobic artist. His singing, yes, technically that's what it's called, is terrible, and it sounds like his diet of unfiltered menthols and Bud Lights have permanently diluted his vocals. First, I apologize for making some of you dry heave at the screen for hearing him sing that. Second, his singing is awful, and the band behind Kid Rock on this song is a phoned-in practice session. This was in 2003, so Kid Rock had achieved mega stardom, and they all made what they wanted no matter how awful. People at Waffle House would still listen. Drunkenly listen and not like it, but still listen. Third, I go back to my original apology. No one should have to think of Kid Rock in a situation where he's trying to be seductive through song. Even though people online scream about free speech and First Amendment rights after saying something horrendous, would agree there has to be some type of limit on Kid Rock's serenading covers. Gross. Anyone that tries to cover Freddie Mercury is out of their mind. I don't care how talented. Freddie Mercury is unachievable for most vocalists. That being said, Adam and Maroon 5 have been called out of their minds before, so them trying is sad but makes sense. If you were expecting a hilariously bad cover or a weird, ridiculous cover of Crazy Little Thing Called Love, you'll be disappointed because this Maroon 5 cover is actually really hokey and sad, as if Adam was trying to practice in his bedroom with a hairbrush as a microphone. It was dumb and shouldn't have been recorded at all. Not only is the joyous beat that Queen originally had stripped down, Adam hams it up with the performance. That is the perfect way to describe whatever this cover is. It's Maroon 5 goofing off while trying to sound smooth, and that somehow makes them sound goofier because you realize the original was by Queen. This was years after Maroon 5 shifted over to the top 40 pop format, and even then turning something quite simple and peaceful like Crazy Little Thing Called Love makes me think the band was on a full-blown strike from effort. I mean, that's at least a reason for this sounding like this. Remember that 3-year span when Weezer was just churning out endless content like Rivers Cuomo was on some weird quota? During that time was the Teal album filled with cover songs that no one wanted to hear Weezer cover, but that won't stop a bunch of nerds in nerd rock. Teal mostly had 80s covers, including the famous Africa cover, but Teal also had a cover of No Scrubs by TLC. Because when you think of No Scrubs, you think of a group like Weezer performing it and singing the lyrics with all the swagger and sass that TLC had, right? Why does this exist? The cover is as real as it is awkward. What's more awkward is they would perform it live in 2019 as well. All those Pinkerton fans who insist the serious side of Weezer was the best couldn't have been too happy when Rivers started singing about not wanting a Scrubs number. That sounds so ridiculous to say out loud, but it's real. I stand by that just because it's unexpected doesn't make it automatically good. In fact, it's a weird pairing from concept, and I think Weezer were trying to be ironic, but it just came off lame. Wow, that's Weezer in a nutshell, actually. and Dimebag wept. One time in Buffalo, while Fall Out Boy was on top of the world, they had local music hero Keith Buckley join them on a stage to perform a song. What song did they decide to cover for the emo-loving sad boy crowd in 2007? Why, Walk from Pantera, of course. Obviously. There are only combined clips of this cover online, as most versions are either too poor to post or trying to be a kept secret from the label. And for good reason, as Fall Out Boy trying to do the riffs and guitar work of Walk just doesn't turn out well live for the group. Part of me appreciates the attempt at a band having fun with their audience and having fun with another musician in their hometown. Many other bands have done that, but they hadn't really tried a heavy metal banner anthem while also trying to be the sad boy rock that's heartbreaking. Not to mention, it's hard to match the anger of Pantera with the emotion of From Under the Cork Tree. It just wasn't meant to be. That's as nice as I can be about this, and I think I understand why so few copies and examples of Fall Out Boy covering Pantera exist online. I like to imagine that venue in Buffalo enforced a new rule of no covering Pantera from that point. Last year I did a video on the atrocities that Kidz Bop caused to the world. You can check that out in the video description if curious. But this time I want to point out something specific, because Kidz Bop made an entire cover album of Beatles songs. It's not just the catchy upbeat stuff either. They run the gambit from I Wanna Hold Your Hand all the way to Let It Be. With the remaining members of the Beatles at Apple, were they all okay with this? I can't imagine they could have seen a dime from this and the poor kids would end up hating the Beatles afterward. It's rare to hear how bored kids are while singing an upbeat song, but you can just tell in these awful covers that the kids are singing lines to a song they barely know in front of a shady Kidz Bop director who just wants songs as fast as possible. Save your questions and complaints, Billy. Just record the song and keep going. All of these are on YouTube and probably other places, and I shudder to think that some grandparents bought this album for the grandkids and said, "This is what I used to listen to, and a bunch of kids like it here, so you need to like it." Okay, Grandpa, time for you to go lie down. Nickelback has done covers before. Usually it's as a B-side on an album or an extended cut, but a few years ago they jumped on the long list of artists to cover Devil Went Down to Georgia. The difference here is that Nickelback tried to make the cover stand out in an odd way, even for Nickelback. And they did that by adding a lot of profanity. Vulgar language to show how tough and angry they can be on a song like Devil Went Down to Georgia. Nothing about this makes sense, and it's such a weird choice in delivery for a song that's older than the band.
That chair right there, let me show you how it's done.
I still don't get why the decision was made. I cannot be mad at the guitar work and riffs even though they're stock, but it's laughable delivery and tough guy attitude from Chad that makes no sense. That's not a Nickelback attitude, and it's not reflective of the story in a fiddle duel with the devil on a cover song that does not even have a fiddle. Kroger trying to be sinister, a butt rock devil solo, all of it screams Nickelback trying their best to be heavy, but not being able to write that heavy of a track in 2020, so they just layered some stuff that Charlie Daniels Band did. It's still confusing to me, and it's been years. Why would I believe Nickelback as this angry and edgy in 2020?
I done told you once, you son of a, I'm the best that's ever been.
It is such a weird dynamic to have a band with a wildly laid-back tone try to cover something emotional and angsty, but that's what 311 did. What's weirder is that The Offspring was happy to have 311 cover Self-Esteem, even if it ended up awkward, it's sounding cheesy and not believable. Right off the bat, both vocalists trying to cover Dexter does not work at all, and the guitar notes in 311's style to the rhythm of one of The Offspring's biggest tracks sounds like an AI creation, telling AI to perform The Offspring in the style of 311. But this was well before people did that with AI. This was 2018. I don't hate 311 or what they produce either, but not only is the emotion completely stripped away from this cover, it just sounds off-putting as well as outdated, which is normally a term you want to stay away from if you're already covering a song from the past. They are covering a 90s song with a different 90s sound here. It doesn't flow well. I get the idea of having fun with a cover, but you can do more than just go through the motions with the notes and tones you know how to play and karaokeing your way through the lyrics. I mean, there are karaoke singers around the world that would give more energy than this. This entry really isn't as serious as it was done once live between songs, but it was in front of a sold-out stadium crowd, and the crowd deserves justice. So does Prince. Metallica has done great covers in the past, so half of Metallica farting out a cover of When Doves Cry does not make sense. There's goofing off for a live crowd, and then there was confusing tens of thousands of people. Kirk and Rob really wanted to do this from that point, and even James and Lars were nowhere to be found, as if they were saying, if you cover Prince like you did in rehearsal, we're just gonna walk off stage. Prince is a legend, but I'm pretty confident the belligerent die-hard Metallica fanbase was not there to hear two members of Metallica cover When Doves Cry with a massive amount of distortion and a deep guttural voice. The crowd tried to chime in a little at the title drop, but for every other second, it's dead silence from the audience. Then again, Kirk and Rob knew the crowd wouldn't leave because more Metallica was coming, so it's not like they would just walk out if they knew Water Battery was coming up next. Sneaky move to pull from Metallica. On the plus side, Lars did not miss a note on this performance. Flawless.
This is what it sounds like.
A fanatical fan base will defend anything, even if it's a cover song, barely representing the original work and making it sound 1,000 times worse. Following in reverse, who are getting radio play for every new single, covered and mutilated Papa Roach's Last Resort. Mutilated is a proper description of what Ronnie Radke and company did to this track. Over 20 years after Last Resort skyrocketed a nu metal band in '99, it was reimagined as a whiny, emotional, cringe-filled ballad with a piano as a sad man who loves to brag how he's successful and not that sad. This may not be the song to get that message across.
Downward spiral, where do I begin?
It's awful, and at times shrill. I understand the cover got the blessing from Jacoby Shaddix, but it was more like Jacoby just coddling a child saying, look what I can do, while showing Jacoby the song. That makes Ronnie Radke the equivalent of Stewart from Mad TV, and that fits oddly well.
Look what I can do!
If this was released in the late 2000s, then the MySpace scene would have praised this as the new anthem, and it would have been another nail in the coffin for why the MySpace scene should have stayed dead. Sadly, whispering the verses of Last Resort is pandering to the ladies and also to teenagers who think Radke is deep with his performance. This cover is awkward and as deep as a kiddie pool. This has to be the last bad covers video for a while, right? There's no more to talk about. I don't know if I can keep doing this as how bad they keep getting, and even if there's no end in sight, I think I'm gonna take a break from watching people fail to cover a song that makes you wish the original didn't exist in the first place. I want to redo some videos and create videos of my own that are different, but I understand this is content some people want, and the content that YouTube is most likely to push out. It's as if YouTube secretly loves it when terrible music is put out so people can engage with how bad it is. A true mirror of society, or a common central opinion that anyone can agree with when a song is bad.
Finally, here's a cat. I'm doing this voiceover because I dare not say anything while Pearl is sleeping. He spent many hours helping me edit. My most faithful employee.